Trish and I had been notified just before airtime of a dear friend who had become seriously ill and wasn't expected to make it over the weekend. And we wanted to celebrate her and pass that information along to our listeners. It probably became not only the most emotional, but probably one of the hardest broadcasts that we've ever done.
I apologize for the unusualness of tonight's program. We didn't know how I don't know how long tonight's program is going to last, but for Trish and I and Matt and Tina, our hearts are in another place tonight. I want to tell you a story about a person that you have probably never heard of, someone that you probably don't know, and yet her work in and amongst the paranormal community has been monumental. A person who was my mentor in this field, who was there for me when I needed her, and who was also there even in those times when I didn't think I needed her. A person who I have held the deepest respect for and have always held her image and her example as that which the paranormal community should hold high and say that this is the type of person who has the quality and characteristics that we admire. She taught me a lot about the power of family and friends. She is someone who is a shining example of grace and dignity, someone who lovingly called me son. And with great respect and pride, I called her mom. Now, I've often told you on this program that there is a core of people in the paranormal community and in the paranormal field who I've always considered the silent heroes. The ones who have, throughout their lives, worked quietly in the background, unnoticed. Well, her name is Mary Pascarella Downey. Mary Pascarella Downey is one of those big silver shiny jewels who goes unnoticed, and yet her work is immense. She began in the paranormal community at a very young age. As a little girl, she began to notice that maybe she was different from others and found it very fascinating that some people didn't quite see the world the way that she did. She had a gift. She had the ability to speak with spirit, to communicate with spirit, and to glimpse into the veil of time. Growing up, as she developed her skills, she began to realize that there were others who had this ability as well, but not everyone. She began a radio program called The Rare and the Unusual back in the 50s at WICC in Bridgeport, Connecticut. For years, she talked about the realms of the paranormal, about ghosts and hauntings and the psychic realm. She never called herself a psychic. She declared herself a time walker, someone who had the ability to look forward and backward into time. In the early 60s, she founded the Psychic Research Institute, the first fully founded institute in the United States, because it came through and was associated with Yale University. And she was an instructor and the founder of that institute. Many people came through the doors of her school, including two new rookies in the field, Ed and Lorraine Warren. And she took them in and taught them about this thing that we call the paranormal. She was a dear friend to many in the community and remains a dear friend to many of us in the community, including myself, people you may have heard of like Betty and Barney Hill, Uri Geller, and so many others.
Look at you in that picture. Long time ago.
I'm just hot in any video that I'm in. Mary Downey eventually was called to work a very special case in the 70s. And she traveled to 112 Ocean Avenue.
And there he is, George Lutz.
And was a principal investigator with Ed and Lorraine Warren in the Amityville Horror. Since that time, she was so affected by that case, she quietly stepped out of the public eye and moved to Florida and lived her life raising her kids, raising grandkids, and being Mary Downey. I found it very fascinating the first time that I met her. She was speaking for the first time in some 30 years about the Amityville Horror at the invitation of our friend George Lutz.
There he is.
And speaking at that convention, she was amazing. Simply amazing. And she was able to reach into the crowd and touch people's lives. We had dinner that night at the invitation of George Lutz. I was invited to go to dinner with them, and there sat Mary Downey. And I thought to myself, okay, lady, here comes this little 4-foot bundle of charm, of grace, of dignity, and all of that stuff. But she said, you know what? I'm a psychic.
Yeah, and you're going,
I was like,
yeah,
all right.
Sure you are.
Well, let's try this out. And I started projecting in my mind while I sat there with 10 or 12 people around the dinner table, all quiet and just fascinated by what Mary Downey had to say. And I just put it out there through this little feeble brain matter that I have.
Not in words.
Mary, if you're so good, then I want you to hear what I'm saying to you. And this was at a time when Matt just walked downstairs and grabs tissues and comes back up. And Mary sat at the table, and I replayed in my mind an incident that I had great trouble with, of an attack that occurred to my mom, of a spiritual nature, of a dark negative nature, of something coming down our stairs, my mom running in fear, locking the door, of the sounds of our house being torn apart, of banging on the door. And because of what I was involved with at the time, with the radio shows and my interest in the paranormal and reaching out to people to try to find some resolution about this, I always felt and I always had a regret that maybe that was my fault. So I had that in my mind and I was projecting that. And Mary Downey, it was just casually going about conversation and picking at her little plate of fish. And she looked at me, stopped in mid-sentence, and looked over at me and said, "The thing on the stairway was not your fault. It had nothing to do with you, and we'll talk about it later."
Yeah.
And after I got done crapping my pants, getting up off of the floor and sitting down, somewhere in that space, Mary Downey and I became best friends.
Yeah.
Since that time, Mary has helped hundreds of families afflicted with violent haunting cases. The videos that you're seeing are little clips that I've shot over the years traveling the country with Mary Downey, investigating, counseling, helping others, healing. Jason Gowan tried her like I did. Oh, if you're that good, tell me something I don't know.
Yep.
And she looked at him and she said, you know what? You have a kind heart. You're a good soul. And when you get your television show, just remember that.
In 5 years.
In 5 years' time, when you're on TV, remember who you are. Remember that you're a kind heart and that you have a good soul. 5 years later, Jason Gowan was starring on A&E Television's Extreme Paranormal. Wow.
She told him within, 2 days of when his grandfather was going to pass.
Yeah.
And why.
And I think it probably floored Trish more than anything else the day that Mary and I were walking in the mall, toddling along, arm in arm, and Trish was looking at her, and we had just started dating, and Mary looked at her and says, well, when you two get married.
On your first anniversary, she said.
Yep. And Trish looked at her like, what?
Yeah, right.
You think I'm marrying this guy? And so it came to pass.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mary Downey. You gave me release. You gave me healing. You gave me power. You gave me your kindness and your heart. And I thank you for that. I'm telling you this because I received a letter today from Mary, her daughter, by the same name, Marilyn. And it says, good afternoon, Tim. My name is Marilyn. I am Mary's youngest daughter. I was surfing the internet out of curiosity under my mother's name, and I came across a radio broadcast of your show back in August 2009. My mother always said that things happen for a reason and in their own time. And I just wanted to reach out to you because it seems that you have much love and respect for her. With a heavy heart and tearful eyes, I need to inform you that her health is rapidly declining, and unfortunately, she will not be back in Florida to do one of the things she enjoys doing so much, chatting with you. She is currently with family, where she is getting round-the-clock care from them, along with the angels of hospice. I have no idea why I reached out to you. But like she says, there is a reason for everything. We might not know what it is, but it is what it is. One of her favorite lines.
Yeah.
I want to personally thank you for your kind words of appreciation to her when you last met. Unfortunately, she did not get as much as she deserved of those kind words throughout her life. Nowhere near what she deserved. I just wanted to let you know that in a funny way, your show was very comforting to me today. And thanks. Much love to you and your family. Much love to your radio listeners and beyond. I'm glad to put a face to the name that she spoke of, Tim Yancey. God bless and warmest regards, Marilyn. So, Miss Downey, I want to celebrate your life. I want to thank you for who you are and what you have been to Trish and I. And for the paranormal community, we are in the midst of losing a giant.
A 4'8" giant.
A little tiny giant. An amazing, amazing person who helped many. Many of us held her very dear. And as I said before, these are the people, paranormal community, that we need to lift and hold up high and show the rest of the world. These are the people that we admire. These are the people who have the quality and the characteristics that we want to show. Miss Trish,
I don't know.
I pass it over to you.
Oh, that's not very fair.
I'm sorry, baby. You can flip our cameras on because we're crying messes on just about every show. It's all right.
Well, It's funny. My first interaction with Mary was when I started dating Tim, and he said, when we started to get serious, he said, "Well, you're going to have to. I need you to talk to my friend Mary because she would like to speak to you."
Yeah.
And I talked to her on the phone, and it's funny because Tim and I jokingly are like, yeah, okay, you're a psychic, whatever. Don't know that I believe that, and I am very skeptical of anyone who says they're psychic, but I have never ever before felt someone on a phone call trying to pick my brain. It was very interesting. And so Mary and I had a very unique first phone call where she tried to assess my intentions with her son. and,
Yep. Make
and-
sure that you were of quality and caliber.
Yes, yes. And her and I and when she finally laughed and said, "Well, I know you know what I'm doing," basically, and I, was trying not to be mind read, if you will, and we kind of were fast friends from there because I, basically told her, "Look, I've got nothing but good intentions," and that was kind of where we kind of hit it off. But Mary was a unique expression to me stepping up with Tim. And through the years of hanging out with her, it's been a wonderful blessing. And she's done some really cool things. She's made our minister cry. She's
Yeah.
I remember the first time she met our minister that married us. And like we said, she's, like 4'8", and we all went to lunch afterwards, and she said, "I want to sit next to him when we get to lunch because I need to talk to your minister." And within 5 minutes, he's blubbering over his luncheon plate because of how accurate she was with some things that were going on in his life. And I never saw Mary as a psychic after that. I never asked her a question about what was going to happen. I never did any of that. Mary is to me something different. She's my mom from life, and Tim's mom from life, and I'm really grateful that we got to spend some time with her recently. Her plan was to visit us down here for a little while, and her grandson and some family, and then go up and go through some medical tests and procedures that she needed to do, and then come back. And that's not going to happen at this point. So. Sorry.
Mary Downey is someone, as you can tell, who's very special to us. And so with that said, it is my prayer that you will think about our friend Mary Downey
Yeah.
this weekend. And with a smile in your heart, just celebrate the life that is Mary Downey, and know that there are people in this world who are monumental giants in the paranormal field, who never looked for the recognition, who never sought the attention, but who touched the lives of hundreds of people in this field.
And I think you see that in her daughter's email to you. Mary had two very separate lives. She had a personal life and she had a paranormal life, and she didn't mix those two very often.
No.
And kind of kept her kids away from a lot of the stuff that she did. Mary was instrumental in solving a case, 1970s or 60s, called the Penny Sarah case, that had been an unsolved murder that she solved. And we still, every once in a while, will turn on the History Channel or A&E and find the documentary about her part in that. And up until very recently, she's still working with some detectives down here in trying to solve some murder cases. And so she's done work all along, but kind of kept her kids out of all of that. So
I found it amazing that at her age, as just a few months ago, she was here in Florida with us. And
tooling around.
it was very frail.
Yeah.
And to the point of, just getting in the car was a major chore
Yeah.
for us. And yet, she got in that car and off to the mall we went, and we had dinner. And down to Fort Lauderdale she goes to meet with FBI agents to work on a case. And when she walked in the door, it was like homecoming week at the police department.
Yeah.
Everybody gathered around to see Mary.
Yeah.
It was an amazing sight.
I had the blessing of driving her down there before, and it's so cute because you see all these hardened detectives, and there's often a detach between what people would consider quote real detective work and psychic people stepping in on a case. And I'm confident that there are a lot of whack jobs out there saying, wait, I have this lead, I have this. But Mary was a little different than that, and this detective for years has used her help on different cases and things. And it's so cute the first time I got to drive her down there that we walk in and she literally goes from office to office of everybody wanting a reading or wanting a whatever, but she prefers to do it that way because we've had several conversations about when you are an honest to goodness psychic person feeling vibes and seeing through what people put out there, you don't necessarily want to be in crowds, and you don't necessarily want to hang out with a bunch of people, and that was kind of the way that she chooses to do it, is just one-on-one or hanging out in smaller situations. I think she enjoyed her time with us because she didn't have to be on, it was a different thing. And I think the last time that she's been here, or last time that she was just here, she was kind of trying to tell us in a few little ways that all was not well. And she was real insistent on spending a lot of time this last time. And God, we walked around a Marshall store for an hour and a half shopping, and she wanted to get all the kids gifts, and she wanted to do all these things that we normally don't necessarily do. And so it was, I guess I should have known.
Well, I think that we did know.
Yeah.
So for us, we very rarely do this here at Encounters Live. And it has not been our intent to depress you, to bring you down, to bum you out. It has been our intention to celebrate that which is a friend of ours, Mary Pascarella Downey, and to introduce her to you as what I consider to be the real examples of people that we need to hold up high in the paranormal community and say, this is what should be.
Yeah.
So with that said, as we end our show a little early tonight, please, on behalf of us, and again, this is a request that we very rarely put out, but I would like to ask for your prayers, your love, and your light for a dear friend, Mary Pascarella Downey. That's going to wrap it up for us. We'll see you next week here at Encounters Live.